5 years project, renewal for another 5 years, and renewal is due now in 2024. This happened. Now, but why I'm telling you this story? This happened. The reason why I'm telling you this story. The reason is could not deliver it because I thought the businesses are not committed. Because so the first thing businesses are not committed. When we talk about e-governance, so the first thing when we talk about e-governance, we need to bring ourselves at the global. We need to bring ourselves at the global. So I'm coming to as a demand as well. So I'm coming to as a demand. But on the other side, all those years since 2014, there was something in my heart, a guilt that I couldn't do it for Pakistan, and that's why I'm here. So. I mean, dedicated my time. My family is still in Australia, and I came here so that I can contribute anything to the country. I will. So wherever I find opportunity, I try to do that for Pakistan. But on the other side, when I'm sitting on the table now as the CEO of National Information Technology Board, I have now realized these are probably not only the businesses to be blamed to, it is partly on the government as well. We have not provided the digital foundations which are essential for the electronic governance, on which the services can be offered in a competitive market, locally and internationally. So this is a gap that need to fill together. Now, a little about, because we have a diversity of participants here, so just to describe, like when we say e-governance, I will just give you a breakdown of that, of how Saudi Arabia is doing that. They have divided the digital transformation of the country into 3 pillars, 3 components. One is the digital society, which is the G2C part, right? So the society, convenience for the people. So this is the first part. The second part, which is important, is the digital economy, right? So keep comparing with where we are at this stage. So we need to highlight the gap as well. And the third part is actually the digital governance for all of these components. Okay, again, I'm not going into details, but they call it a digital stack the country, and that's how they're transforming. And they're taking transformative measures, which are so maverick that some experts, sometimes you might be looking at the blogs and they might be saying, oh, these are crazy ideas. But those crazy ideas are reaping fruit from them. They're rapidly transforming their economy from oil to digital. And we can see the result. The largest payouts, if you know, for the consultant, because I've come from the consulting world generally before coming here. So, I mean, it's a times of a difference in remuneration and the benefits that they're offering, but how they're offering is a separate story. Okay, now what we need to do. The thing is, recently, when I have joined here during the past 10 months, what I have seen is in Pakistan, the realization and the steps are in the very right direction. Right, this forum as well, right, what is happening in the Prime Minister office as well. So they all have put the digital economy at the top. So that means the priority is right. But then we before we say we're walking or we're moving, we need to take the first step. And now I think right after the strategy, that step needs to be taken. So what are those steps? The first thing is when you plunge into this business, because it has to be sustainable and profitable, you can't just make it a cost center and then expect the digital transformation to happen. No, the basic formula remains the same as for any business. It has to be sustainable financially. It has to be an economic formula. It has to be, a strategy has to be there, which not only, where we pour the money in, but we have a business case rollout as well. So that strategy still has to be seen, being worked on right now, but that still needs to be formulated. This is one. The second thing is that, we need to look at what are the enablers. The reason I told you the first story about the people looking for jobs and offices not being able to accommodate them is a very evidence of a gap. Without filling that gap, we can't move, because this transformation has to be done by the people. And the academia is doing an excellent job, but when I am interviewing the people, Gone are the days of 1960s when I would hire you and you'll be given an opportunity to learn and transform and, learn the coding and this. And this is what is happening when I talk to, right now I'm talking to the students and those who are looking for job. When I talk to them, they are good. They can tell me the definitions. They can tell me, they can write a piece of code, but that's not sufficient. I give you the problem in the interview. You have to tell me the approach and you have to solve it. That's not happening. Believe me, we need to solve this. I will tell you how the rest of the world is doing it. I've supervised PhD at University of South Australia, University of Adelaide in Australia, University of Auckland in New Zealand, and University of Linköping in Sweden. Now, Bachelor of Software Engineering in University of South Australia, just as one example. Sorry, I think I've taken most of the time. I'll try to wrap it up. Okay, okay, thank you. So University of South Australia, I'm on the board as well, and I'm an adjunct at the University of South Australia. So if I ask you, software engineering or any discipline of engineering, tell me one most fundamental subject. What will be the answer? Engineers. What is the most fundamental? Can I get a... Can I get a...
Shu brings you authentic Korean indulgence in 3 exciting spicy flavors. Try Shu Korean noodles now. Can I get a...
Right. So by the time the student completes the first 2 semesters, they are ready to get the problem and we give them the problem. Example number 2, Accenture. I told you I was leading Accenture before coming here. So one of the things we've formally done, so I'm talking about that part of the world, which is now leading this transformation. Australian government was the first government in the world to launch 100% online immigration. Australian government, when I was in Adelaide, when the COVID happened, it started 7 December 2019. But I can tell you, other than the masks and other than stopping the people going out on the street, the rest of the world did not realize what's happening. The world actually started realizing somewhere in August, the scale of the pandemic. It's not an ordinary pandemic. Even the US, you could travel to US from US to Pakistan, right? With the mask and vaccination, of course, right? But it was possible. But I can tell you, 23rd of February, 2020, right after 2.5 months of the eruption of the pandemic, Australian government all of a sudden issued a news. No more travel. No one can travel. A lot of criticism. Even I was among those who criticized the government. What are you doing? Let me tell you the result. And then I will tell you how they did it. The result is my children in Adelaide only sat home for 1.5 months. My life, my shopping, my children's education, my office life was just as normal. How did they achieve that? And when I say no travel, it also means not only international travel, I'm also talking about interstate travel. My niece was in Victoria in Melbourne, and she had to deliver a baby, and she wanted to deliver that at my place. She was not allowed to travel. Now, why I'm telling you this? The reason is, when you say digital transformation of the country and the e-governance, it is not only technology that you bring the technology and implement. That will not give you anything. The thing is, that transformation happened because Australian government has implemented AI-based DSS, decision support systems. In the simulations, I was also consulting the government those days. It was very imminent. There's no solution to this pandemic. No vaccine is going to come. So what was the only solution recommended by the machine learning generated model is you have to close the borders. Now, it's the conclusion given by a system, but look at the pace of the government to formulate a policy around it and actually being able to enforce it. You cannot make it happen if you don't have digital transformation, e-governance, digital economy, digital governance, and digital society. Because of rapid adoption and controls. How many enforcements are we trying to do in this country? For example, I was in Lahore on the weekend, and somebody told me that e-challan system, the ticketing system, is electronic. If you cross the red signal, you'll be given a fine. And I actually was sitting with someone, and he drove through the red signal. I said, "What's happening?" I said, "Oh, don't worry about that." I said, "But I mean, it's a penalty." "Yeah, it's 500 rupees. Fine." But I said, "Will you get it if you don't pay?" Said, "I've got so many at my home." In Adelaide, you cross red signal is $700. You don't. So in Adelaide, you cross red signal, $700. You don't pay it in 1 week, it is 1,400. You don't pay next week, it is 2,100. You don't pay next week, you can't put your car on the road. So how can you enforce that? It's not only the technology. So some issue with the mic. So what I can do, no problem. So the thing is, it's not only the technology that needs to be implemented. Now, coming towards the final part, I think I told a long story. One important thing is when we talk about the implementation of those modern systems in Pakistan, we also have to talk about the policies around it. We also have to talk about how they'll be enforced. But even before that, one of the big confusions that I'm coming across while transforming the digital, this government to the digital is in any government department you walk into, there are very good documented processes. Something written in a book called Rules of Business. What is the name of that book? Rules of Business 1973, right? So having said that, I'm not saying it's wrong, but the thing is, it's so static. That is one gap that we have. Our business processes have evolved over time because there was one section officer sitting in that building and he was also dealing with another ministry. So he was being shared. So the rules of business evolved for that department. And then they were notified for Gazette. That's not how you can digitize. That's not how you automate, right? So one of the things that we need to do is an extensive overhaul of the business processes. But more important, is that we do not make it a one-time activity. Otherwise, it's static. Look, I mean, it has to have a growth mindset. We have to evolve. If you're not willing to change, you cannot change, right? So we have to have dynamic business processes. We have to evolve them. Something called BPR, Business Process Re-engineering. Once we do that, then we automate those processes. If you are automating the same processes which are on ground today, you can call them automation, but don't call them e-governance or transformation, right? It is not digital transformation. So processes, and then now last but not least is capability, people. So we have implemented an e-office system, but most of the issues that are coming in the adoption of e-office are linked with that the people are not able to use it. People are not savvy of the technology. We don't have sufficient infrastructure. We don't have laptops or desktops. People need to be trained. So people's skill need to be evolved. So sorry, I've taken a lot of time, but at the end, what I would like to put down as recommendations is number one, a clear digital strategy. Just like Saudi Arabia has done it, UAE is doing it. US is far behind, if you know, in the digital transformation, right? Because the humongous scale of it. Estonia has done it, but the advantage was the scale. They're too small. Singapore has done it. The advantage was scale and agility. So we have advantages as well. And our advantage, believe me, is the people. I have hired Pakistani people all over the world where, I mean, I've worked with more than 60 nations. And I have hired Pakistanis and they have always made me proud. Our education system is producing very good talent. They can, even if they have not studied something, they can transform. They can learn and deliver. I have got this, impression while I have hired Pakistani resources in the international market. So this is our strength. But what we need to do today is to have a clear strategy, how we engage them, a clear roadmap with objectives, what we need to achieve. We can't achieve everything in the single go. It has to be a consistent model. Because one of the problems, again, as an Australian, if I come to Pakistan, I'm hesitant today to invest in this digital business. Why? Because I'm not certain what happens when the government changes. The policy will remain consistent or not. You need to give that surety. Dubai gave it through free zones first. KSA gave that, right? And then West, if you go, governments change, but the policies remain intact. So we need to do that, and we need to have a clear roadmap, phase-wise approach, and the 4 pillars have to work together. Academia has to work together with the industry. For example, we're happy, and now today, when I'm in the industry, I'm happy to offer apprentices to those who are studying Bachelor of Data Science, for example. So instead of a theoretical project in your final year, I would love to give you a practical experience, a practical problem. You work on that problem. I've also proposed something, I don't know if it will mature or not, but this is something which works in that part of the world, and that is called industry PhDs. I'm happy to supervise. I'm not a registered supervisor at HEC, but I'm registered in the rest of the world, so I can supervise. But I have bunch of people like me as well who are willing to supervise. So we will give industry-based problems. We can produce industry-based PhDs. Then industry also needs to accommodate. Now I'm talking to the industry. One of the biggest providers, for example, here, Ericsson is gone, IBM is almost gone, but we have Huawei. IBM is gone from Pakistan, by the way, if you know, the mainstream business. So, but Huawei is here. We have technology providers. But one question which I ask them and they shy away is, when I receive the presentations, this much we have invested, this much we do in R&D, this much. Then I ask them, how much R&D budget have you spent in Pakistan? Now, why it makes a difference? I'm sorry, it's getting longer, but last 2 minutes, sorry. But one example I will tell you is, have you noticed that you take a pill, for example, Panadol or COVID vaccination, your friend also took it, you were safe from COVID, you take the same pill together or same vaccination, but he was not. He got it even after vaccination. Why? The answer is technology. The answer is e-governance. I'll tell you how. The reason is there is something called precision medicine. I don't know it's the terminology used here in Pakistan or not, but it's called precision medicine. And precision medicine means my medicine needs to be customized. Just like my software needs to be customized to your needs, my medicine needs to be customized to your needs. It's not happening in Pakistan. I still, my mother was in ICU a couple of months back, and the same situation which was in 1960s, similar pills. I didn't see any difference. But the thing is, how effective will that pill be on you? There's no research around it. The answer comes from genome sequencing. That's not happening here. And the thing is, how can it happen? It will happen when we have the genomic data. And that genomic data for Pakistan does not exist. Genomic sequencing is being done for US, for Australia, for others. I can tell you how we have engaged with the medicine there, how customized healthcare is there. It's not happening here. So we need to produce data sets. That is why I said R&D needs to work. R&D is a separate pillar. When I say R&D, it's not academia. Academia is teaching, right? But academia, industry needs to work together. Industry needs to invest in the R&D here. And then the final pillar is the government, which you need to transform, right? With the enabler. So, I mean, these are the steps. If we take, I think we are good to go. All that requires is the commitment from the top, which I think I have seen in the Prime Minister House. I have seen the commitment is there. They want to do it. They just say, tell me what to do. So I think there's a right point in time we're having this debate. Let's draw down as an outcome the strategy, a clear roadmap. We'll present it to those in the industry, in the academia, in the government, and let's make it happen. Thank you very much.
The most important takeaway was the digital society and digital economy has to go together. And there's a need of an ecosystem to be created without business processes being re-engineered. So all digital revolution endeavors would come a cropper. With this takeaway, I would request Ambassador Hasham for his insights on Saudi Arabia's e-governance model, because he's been ambassador in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and he has a better insight about the processes that are going on. Before he touches upon, I'll just like to remind him that already there is a term called adoption rate of IT processes. So that is over 80% there. And the user satisfaction is more than 85%. So these are some of the indices that show how IT is penetrating and how people are responding positively to Saudi government's initiatives. So over to you, sir, for your discourse.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ambassador Dr. Raza Muhammad, Dr. Babar Majid Bhatti Sahab, Brigadier Janju, Dr. Anil Sulman, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for inviting me, and let me put the record straight. Although my perspective on Saudi Arabia is just a layman's perspective, because I'm neither a technician as he is, or so from the user perspective and from a governmental perspective, and my comparing that experience with my experience here in Pakistan. So I think we've already overshot the time, but I'll try and be brief and echo some of the thoughts which Dr. Babar has put forward, and also So one of the panelists has left, so you can put the question to the moderator as well. So, but anyway, as we understand e-government or e-governance, some people use it interchangeably, but although there's slight variation to it, as Dr. Babar also pointed out, obviously at the end objective of e-governance to be more smarter, perhaps be more cost effective, more efficient, transparent, and accountable. Most importantly, accountable. And one thing I've noticed in Saudi Arabia, that the e-governance model is inclusive. They have especially reached out to ordinary citizens and businesses and small and medium enterprises to be part of that process. And this process is essentially based on use of internet and web-based technologies. And now you can throw in the artificial intelligence to make better decision-making. Let me also throw in some numbers with respect to Saudi Arabia. They rank first in, as far as the digitization of the government is concerned. They rank first in the Middle East and North Africa, And globally, they have been ranked third of the 198 countries, of which the World Bank has issued an index based on a measurement index. They ranked third in the world in 2023. So that is something to behold and perhaps something to emulate. So they have a digital government authority which oversees the overall transformation. And let me also say that Riyadh, being one of the smart cities in the world, is also ranked fourth globally as far as the smart cities index is concerned. And last but not least, the digital transformation index, based on IMF data, they have calculated on a scale of 0 to 1 as 0.97 in respect of Saudi Arabia. So that is something fantastic. So no longer Saudi Arabia, which used to look towards Pakistan for technology in 60s and 70s and perhaps in the 80s as well, they are far ahead. And obviously, the main reason for driving this transformation to the digital world is undoubtedly the Vision 2030, which was issued in 2016. And His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince and the Prime Minister, is not only the head of the government, but also he's hands-on. He sits on a number of boards himself to see to it firsthand as to where the status of the project is. So under the overall umbrella where they are driving the socio-economic development of the entire Saudi Arabia, so digitization or e-governance fits in very nicely, and it is one of the premier undertaking for the, and they are, and as you know, I think nearly 70% of the population in Saudi Arabia lives in urban cities. But they have made it a point that the infrastructure which they provide for governance. So what is e-governance? Essentially, you want to provide information and services to your clients at their fingertips. So they have made sure that the backward areas are also, as Brigadier Janjua mentioned, that they have 85% of, the access to internet and at a very fraction of the price. So while they build an ambitious nation, that's what they call in their Vision 2030, they want to have an ambitious nation. So e-governance would provide transparency, effective governance, accountable, and highly prepared for the digital world, which with the onset of disruptive technologies such as the data sciences and Internet of Things and so on and so forth, artificial intelligence, because the disruptive technologies are set to change the way we live, the way we do business. So unless Pakistan gets onto that train sooner than later, we will be left far behind. We are already way behind as far as that aspect is concerned. A little bit about the history. I think it was as early in 2003 that they set on the motion for digitization of Saudi Arabia. And then he mentioned about the Yasser program, which came about in 2005. And particularly the major impetus which was provided on two strategic events. One was the oil shock. The prices for oil fell from $115 to a barrel down to 28. And there was one day where the oil companies were willing to pay the people to take oil. They did not have, this happened they didn't have things to store. So that's when they were running and their foreign exchange reserves fell from, I think, $750 billion down to less than 450. And they had in 2016, for the first time, I think, the Saudi economy contracted, and also they had a budgetary deficit of nearly $72 billion because of a variety of reasons. So that's when they decided, they put forward the vision, and that's when they decided that the non-oil based economy will be addressed. And I think, if I'm not wrong, currently the non-oil revenue for the government translates nearly 50%. And that is VAT and so many other things, which dependent levy for the, and then tourism is contributing nearly 4.5% of the GDP to the national growth. So this is something with a clear strategy, with a clear objectives in number of key themes, which I'm sure you can have a look at them. But that's how, when a nation decides at the very top level with full commitment and with a clear vision and clear objectives to set path on a route which is good for the ordinary people of your homeland, that's when the success comes running down for the leaders. So, as I said, the contribution of digital world or digital economy was only 0.2% in 2016. And in 2025, it is set to grow to nearly 25%. At the moment, it is hovering around 19 and 20%. Two key areas which are not necessarily part of the e-governance. One is the development of the fintech, the financial technology, the payment services. And we are still grappling to develop our e-commerce because we cannot have a system where the payment services can be authenticated, and only recently we have made some progress in that. And let me say that the payment services provided by Visa and MasterCard and other global agencies, they take away nearly $300 million in the, and India, having realized this about, I think, 15, 20 years back, they had their own financial services for payment gateways. And the time is right where we need to invest, and perhaps. And under the program of Tamara is one of the programs, flagship programs in fintech in Saudi Arabia, which has made huge progress. The other area, perhaps, which we need to, on the sidelines of e-governance, is smart cities, because as the Chinese say, it is the cities which are engine for growth. And Dr. Neil, I think, would correct me if I'm off track, but that's where. So confronted with a very similar security challenge as we have, obviously on a much smaller scale. So their governance system in the national database with respect to control of immigration and national identification is so superb that if somebody uses any electronic device, and if there is something attached to that person, whether it is a loan or a ticket or something which he has not paid, in a flash of second, either you are no good to do any more business till such time that you resolve those issues. So I think the concept of smart cities, as I said, that Riyadh being leading smart cities, is not only for security, it is for environment control, it is for traffic management, it is for waste management. So at the end of the day, you want to satisfy the citizens, the service delivery, and the information which the ordinary citizen needs. So you need access to a proper e-governance system not only to manage at the national level. We have success stories in respect of Nadra, which we undertook, and we have exported to a number of other countries as well. And that is a classic case where digitization of the national identification program has led to a vast abatement of security challenge which the state faces. So I think smart cities, the comprehensive approach which Saudi Arabia has taken to do that, that is something. And then there are a number of applications like Tawakkalna, and you must have seen. I forgot to mention that one of the strategic challenges was the transformation of Saudi economy from oil-based to non-oil-based, and also the other impacts was provided by the onset of COVID-19, where you could, in Pakistan, you would struggle to find a place for vaccination and find a slot. There in Saudi Arabia, you would just click on internet, book your appointment, drive there without any human intervention. You just sitting in your car, you had missed it. So for e-governance, not only that you need policies, but you essentially need logistics and infrastructure, so that the spread of technology is such that you can do a business. So if we have e-governance within Pakistan, it has to be extended. That if somebody sitting in my village wants to come over and do certain business, that he should also have an access. So the coverage has to be good. Let me just quickly finish. So let me move on to what are the key challenges one faces with respect to the e-governance model or digitization, as they say. It has been mentioned, is the HR. It's actually the innovative and skill-based human beings who run these systems. Saudi Arabia, of course, has money to spend, and so it's a paradise for the consultants. So for one project, they would have not one consultant, but consultant on top of another consultant on top of. So that's perhaps an overkill from their side, but that's how it is. And I want to make a special mention of the contribution of the female component of Saudi society. Their contribution has far exceeded even the male part in progress over the last 5-6 years. Then there's a question of digital literacy. There are people in Pakistan floating around like myself and perhaps the president, who have very little knowledge except to perhaps run through the word process or maybe PowerPoint. So we are antiquated. So unless the people who are being governed, they have digital literacy, you can't accrue the benefits which you hope from e-governance. Cybersecurity has been mentioned. You're well aware of that. Privacy of data. He mentioned about medicine. The privacy which we accord to our medical data, and I could look at his medical record anytime I want to in CMH or wherever. So privacy of data is an issue. Infrastructure, as I said, you have to have internet access, primarily covering all segments. You can't have traveling from Islamabad to Lahore and come Kalar Kahar and there's no connectivity. So you have to have the infrastructure. Obviously, we're short of resources, but if we have to move towards that, we have to that. And last but not the least is resources and fundings. And in terms of my recommendations, contrary to what I agree to a large extent to Dr. Babar, to the extent that Pakistani in terms of intelligence, in terms of innovation, are ranked very high. But in terms of our universities churning out graduates like crazy, they have zero skills. Absolute zero skills. I've been hiring people, very little. Either the most qualified people, most skill-based, either they go away. So it's a big challenge. So what we need to transform our graduates through perhaps a center of excellence, going through, letting them go through a skill-based 1-year learning with the assistance of industry, with applied knowledge, with applied problems, as the doctor has mentioned, and provide them the real high-tech environment. And that's where your skill-based human resource can be beneficial not only to Pakistan, but can in a big way contribute to the growth of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the happening place. They are still looking for skill-based people. And believe me, I mean, they're looking for the very best. We will lose out if we are unable to provide these skills, whether it is in terms of plumbers or drivers or IT specialists. You'll be left behind if we do not address this critical issue of imparting skills. Then the investment in infrastructure, obviously, that is, one thing which he briefly mentioned was the processes. Our business processes within the governmental sectors are antiquated. He mentioned 1973. I guess some of the processes are dated pre-20th century. So you would often see an act of 1873 governing the military lands, or 1910. So that's where we are. And I was MD Barrier Foundation, and one of the we have this what is called survey services, which we have outsourced to the number of companies from abroad, from France, from American Bureau of Ships, and so many others. It has taken us 1.5 years. We developed our indigenous capability, and that file is still with the ministry. We're losing out on foreign exchange. We have developed indigenous capability. It has, because it requires federal government stamp, it has taken more than 1.5 years, and the file is still with that. So unless we transform our business processes, the armed forces have progressed from toward digitization, towards office automation system. But if you see the structure still remains the same. You have a major general with the brigadier with this, and then one naib qasid, then 2 clerks doing nothing. So as it is, the e-governance flattens and reduces the tiers, the structure. So we have to transform our organizational structures and business processes. I think that's hugely important if we are to progress in terms of e-governance. And last but not the least is the change management implementation. We may have a number of policies very similar to Saudi Arabia, may not be as locally or as secondly defined, but we have a number of policies. But when it comes to implementation, and that is something we lack, not only consistency, as you mentioned, with the change of government. So we need to have state-sponsored policies to see that the private sector is afforded robust growth. It is the private sector which will propel the e-governance. So with those thoughts, I think, thank you very much for patient listening, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Which
Thank you very much, sir. Very illuminating discourse. the audience needs to carry one important takeaway, and that is GFC, not the fan variety, but it's the GFC in the Saudi context. It is a trinity of governance. Governance is all about establishment of rules and a vision. In a IT triangle, on the apex sits the vision with the rules, implementation capability, enforcement capability. And then is the F part, funding. You can have the best rules, you can have the best intentions, but if the funding is choked, nothing moves. So Saudi Arabia is quite lucky on that score, that they are having their governance infrastructure, their rules, their regulations, digital authority. They have national contact center also, in which anything is a single one window operation. Anything that you need to do or you need to complain about the government and about the businesses, you go to national contact center. So this is something that I think we can take away as a lesson. And the third, the C part, is the change management. The whole society, like Dr. Bhatti mentioned, it's digital society as well. That has to be taken, and that has to be taken to that level of digital economy. One of the important aspects I think we missed out in this discourse was the development that is taking place, the whole line in the sand in Saudi Arabia. And you can see from the satellite, this Neom city emerging. There is a procurement on a mind-boggling pace and volume that is happening. Trillions of dollars, they will be spent ultimately. And the most efficient way to contract is the e-procurement. And the Saudi Arabia is doing that. I was reading a research paper yesterday in which they have mentioned that the e-procurement practices through digital technologies have saved 60% of their transaction costs by way of efficiency and by eliminating the possibility of kickbacks and corruptions. So I think this is one of the big takeaways that we need to take home.
Yeah, but just to carry forward what he said, the vision is that Saudi Arabia will be the logistics center, not only in the region, but in the world. And that's where they're progressing in terms of infrastructure development. He mentioned about NEOM, which is a $500 billion project. There's a Red Sea project, which is about $250 to $300 million. Then there's Qiddiya in Riyadh, and so on and so forth, and line. Cube in Riyadh. So they're transforming. So their transformation is comprehensive. They want nearly 5 million Hajis to be able to accommodate 5 million. Currently, they're hovering around 2.5 to 3 million. So in tourism, they're investing. As I said, that the tourism alone contributes about 4.5%. And with that, to abet that program, the e-governance part of it, whether it is visa or booking or anything, that's on your fingertip. So you could hardly imagine while I was ambassador that you could get a visa where the visa fee at that time was 200,000 riyals for Pakistanis for visit, and you had to add a sponsor and this. And here you are now. You can just on a click of a button you can apply. It will still take a bit of doing, but if you have other visas, you can go and so concurrently the processes, the services have changed for the better, and that's how the progress is.
The technology indeed is the great leveler, and as Steve Jobs wrote, he wrote his book Business at the Speed of Thought. So we eliminate all kinds of tiers, and vertical and horizontal integration is taking place. Vertically with all tiers of the government and horizontally with the society. And one of the most important outcomes of this digital governance in Saudi Arabia is the gender integration. For the first time, the gender is being integrated in a big way in Saudi Arabia. So those are very impressive numbers they have achieved by way of inclusivity of women So now I think we have listened to the learned speakers. I think if there are any questions, we can take few questions. So anybody feel free to ask or any, even a comment.
I'll make a small comment. I think, thank you very much, Ambassador Saab, and wo hamare jo speaker chale gaye. I think when we talk about digital connectivity and e-governance, one of the most important things that I think we might have missed is the foundation for that, is connectivity. So Saudi Arabia has a very good model. It's leading the world along with Estonia. I think he also mentioned Estonia. But they have 5G for the common man. You take your SIM at the airport, you get 5G in that as well. So we don't have that, and we've been trying to get it for many years. We've been trying to get Starlink. Starlink has been trying to come to Pakistan actually for many years, but the file has been stuck in some section officer's room or whatever. I don't understand why that happens. But when we talk about these digital transformations, I think what we need is to build that foundation first, where we have that connectivity, we have that cybersecurity, so all of our data is secure. That is very important, and we have the capability to actually use those applications to build on that. And yes, of course, Saudi Arabia has very good example of e-governance. Estonia has 99% of their government functions are now online, and I think similarly is with Saudi Arabia. I think that's the way forward, and that's what the future entails. And if Pakistan needs to do that, first and foremost, what we need to do is build that foundation, get our connectivity right, internet connections, and cybersecurity. I think that might have been missed in today's discussion, so I thought I'd add to that. Thank you.
I think one of the key areas which I mentioned was e-governance is premised on information and communication technologies. So unless you have infrastructure, so I classified it under the overall ambit of infrastructure, whether that is communication infrastructure, whether that is internet provision, your access to, your smart mobiles, your access to laptops and so many other things. So it is extremely important that we have these, and even when we have money, some of the processes which we have within the government sector, you just can't do business. I mean, if the bandwidth has to be auctioned, it took, I think the 4G auction took 5 years, 3 or 4 or 5 years. I know for sure. And similarly, access within GB and AJK, the Kashmir, it took us time. So we are short of resources, but there are times we need to spend smartly, and we need to, because the technology will not stop, we will miss the bus. So the choices are for us to make.
Anybody else?
Excellent insights. But e-governance ना एक फैड सा बन गया हुआ. E-governance से M-governance पे आया, और अब हम crypto governance की बात करते हैं. But my question is कि the models looks very nice, very fascinating. लेकिन in order to be a smart city, in order to have a well-governed structure, energy requirements are also there. Pakistan के पास already itni energy deficit hai, either it is the misallocation of resources or it's the power generation, power losses. But countries like Pakistan, even we can learn that these models work very.
I agree.
अच्छा बताओ, तुम्हें किस तरह का लड़का चाहिए?
Okay. मैं तुम्हें top 5 qualities बताती हूँ. Tall हो, dark हो, बहुत good looking हो, मुझे financial independence और security दे. मेरा shopping companion.
अच्छा बस, तुम्हें लड़का नहीं, जैस कैश वुमेन डेबिट कार्ड चाहिए.
है?
Introducing the Jazz Cash Women Debit Card. तुम्हारा tall and dark shopping companion जो करे तुम्हारी special care. तो अभी ऑर्डर करो.
Energy problem if we want to be a good governed country.
Actually, Pakistan's problem is not the energy deficit. It is the energy's management. We have a generation capacity of 45,000 megawatts. Out of that, only 8,000 is utilized during the winters and 22 to 23,000 megawatts during the summers. And the rest is all idle capacity, and we are giving in capacity payments to different IPPs. We have to do a better job of our energy governance, and we have to do a change in our energy mix by making use of indigenous sources and improving our transmission and distribution loss. So this is all governance issue. Energy per se for IT will be available once we put into practice. But the most important thing that was highlighted during Dr. Bhatti's discourse also was that we need to change our business processes, and our all these government functioning processes have to be re-engineered to optimally utilize IT. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think you have a point. I mean, if you want to govern, say, my village, there's nothing to govern. There are no roads. There are no. So we have competing requirements of development of infrastructure. We want to govern, have a smart city in Sheikhupura. The Sheikhupura has broken roads and there's no waste management. There is nothing. So, but e-governance sits on top of it, and you have to invest in both. It will provide you transparency. It will provide you efficiency. Perhaps be more smarter, and obviously definitely secure. But that is all predicated on investment in infrastructure for e-governance, and also the back end, the logistic infrastructure. If you want to govern your waste management, so you need to have somebody to pick up the waste. But this software or the application will provide information and service to the clients more readily and more efficiently. And one day when you have everything, the whole systems in place, then the e-governance will sit on top of it. So there are competing requirements, I agree, but we're not short of energy, as he says. I mean, part of it is management, part of it is, so I agree to the extent that ये और बहुत सारे मसले हैं जो खाने पीने के मसले हैं.
Governance. If there is no other question, then we'll request Mr. Amar for his short discourse.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm here to thank everyone, especially IPRI and Ambassador Raza Saab for making this possible in a very short span of time. We requested them and they have made this possible. I'm grateful to Mayun Bhai. I know I can call him anytime and I can ask him to arrange such a thing in a very short time. Brigadier Saab has been very kind, and all the management of IPRI, they've been very, very kind to us. And in a couple of days, we have arranged this dialogue. On behalf of VNews, I'm grateful to everyone who has participated in this discussion. Admiral Hasham, I'm grateful to Ministry of IT and all the other speakers. Allow me to briefly introduce VNews. VNews is a digital news and current affairs platform. We are very recent, we are very new, and it's been 1 year that we have launched our services. We are very different. We are not in the race of breaking news. We are not in the race of rating. We believe in one thing, and that is Sabki Khabar. That is our motto. That is our mission. In last 1 year, we have produced 650 stories that were not part of the mainstream media, that were not part of electronic media. They were the stories of far-flung areas, success stories, and we have produced them. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm the reason of this success is that we are modern, we are digital, and the team we have. If you ever come to visit our office, you will see 19-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old people. They are directing us. They are giving us dictation, and we are learning from that. That is V News, and we're progressing well. And we're not only giving news, we are also interested in connecting people, regions, and countries. This seminar, this discussion is part of that. As far as the subject of this discussion is concerned, I've recently visited Saudi Arabia, and I realized Saudi Arabia is a very different, vibrant sort of country. Everything is available on apps. If you talk about license, buying a property, ordering a pizza, or anything, they have cut down the bureaucracy. There is no red tapeism. There are no bureaucratic delays. It has become an entirely different economy. We need to learn that. There are delays. There are red tapeism in Pakistani market. We need to avoid that. And I think what you must have said in the beginning of this discussion and the other participant, we need to learn few things from Saudi Arabia. Again, I will thank everyone for being part of this seminar discussion, and especially I'm grateful to Ambassador Raza Saab for allowing us to host this seminar. Thank you very much.
Bismillah once again, and thank you so much, Amar Masood Saab and V News for actually attracting us, or right, so to say, directing us towards this direction on a very, very important topic, which we have discussed today. And after what we heard from Ambassador Hasham and from Dr. Babar, who is now in the chief executive in the NITP TB, that there is a lot what we need to do. I'll not take too much of time because Ramzan bhi hai aur humne sab kuch sun liya. But I will begin from where I started, that I have seen Saudi Arabia of 1980s. And in early 80s and 70s, we saw Saudi students and all the Gulf countries, students coming here and sitting in our universities and studying here, and their people being trained. Although we still have their cadets coming in the Naval Academy, in the Air Academy, and in the Pakistan Military Academy. They come here and get trained. But I think there was one time when they looked towards us, as you said, sir, towards technology, towards development, towards defense, and these fields. But what happened? I think we did not only we did not keep standing there, we regressed, unfortunately. And they have moved at a fast pace, developed tremendously. What happened actually is the vision of the leadership. If you have good leadership, they give the vision, they provide the enablers, they monitor, they push, they reward, they punish, but they achieve their goals. In our case, the dreams are there, desires are there, perhaps a bit of will is also there, but the push which is needed by the leadership is not there. The hurdles which are to be removed are not being removed. As you gave the example of the foundation, Sir Beria Foundation, that you wanted to contribute towards actually the national goals and establish technology university or technology park, kuch keh lein, way to train people and send them abroad. और 1.5 साल से आपकी प्रोफाइल उधर फंसी हुई है. And similarly, जो अभी आपने कहा कि Starlink ने आना है, 1.5 साल से पता ही नहीं कि कहाँ पे. So basically, dreams and desires हैं, but what is the biggest hurdles are two. I think the books, the rules, regulation, which are too circuitous, too difficult to pass through, even if you're right. And one thing which I hate to mention, but is there, the personal interests. Sometimes the personal interests are also hurdle to the progression in certain things. I have lot many stories, experienced a lot, which I will not share, but this is also sad side of thing. With this, I thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you कि आपने रोजे के साथ ये जहाद लड़ा, खाली पेट के साथ. अल्लाह आपको अजर दे और हमारे बैठने का फायदा मुल्क को हो जाए. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Amar Saab. Thank you, V News.
Thanks, we.
वो मेरे ध्यान में एक एक्सप्रेशन है.
La Asamblea escuchará.
The Assembly will hear an address by the Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, His Excellency Imran Khan. May I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I have great pleasure in welcoming His Excellency Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Mr. President, Honorable Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I feel honored today to represent my country at this forum of world leaders, where we have a chance to discuss problems that the world is facing. I want to talk about a lot of problems, but just 4 today. And I especially came to this forum despite a difficult time in my country, facing challenges. I would not have come, but because I feel that there are some very urgent problems which the world must address. So first of all, I start with climate change. So many leaders have talked about climate change. But Mr. President, I feel that there is a lack of seriousness. Perhaps world leaders some of the leaders who can do a lot, do not realize